with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods.
It's hard to believe, but a leading tourism powerhouse like the United States is facing a serious crisis due to the disappearance of its close neighbor, Canadian tourists. They are the most loyal group of tourists, spend the most money, and contribute tens of billions of dollars each year to the U.S. tourism industry. But now, 80% of Canadian tourists have said no to the U.S. Empty hotels. Shops are deserted. The U.S. economy suddenly lost tens of billions of dollars in a short time. And worse, many states that were once tourist paradises are now gradually becoming revenue blank zones, frozen in the middle of summer. Why are Canadians turning their backs on the U.S.? Which U.S. state is suffering the most severe consequences when Canadians turn their backs on it? Let's explore the top 10 states most heavily affected by the Canadian tourism boycott. You won't believe that state number 9 is on this list. Canadians boycott U.S. tourism. Prime Minister Trudeau urges Canadians to travel to Canada. Recently, a new wave of choice is spreading among the Canadian tourist community. Instead of flocking to the south like every year, they stay in the country, exploring the beauty of their homeland. The incident began after the U.S. government announced new tariffs of up to 25% on goods imported from Canada, a close neighbor and longtime trading partner. The decision made many Canadians feel uncomfortable. They have a negative sentiment towards the United States in particular, following some controversial statements from President Donald Trump, most notably referring to Canada as the 51st state of the U.S. This is no longer a political issue. It is a matter of wounded national pride, a fractured alliance, an economic lifeline silently severed. Prime Minister Trudeau has spoken. In a 13-minute speech on February 1st, Prime Minister Trudeau urged people to do your job and choose Canada. Maybe you'll give up orange juice from Florida altogether. Maybe you'll change your vacation plans to stay in Canada, explore our national parks and provincial cities, and explore our country's historic sites, the Prime Minister said. Canada is the largest source of international visitors to the U.S. tourism industry. According to the U.S. Travel Association, more than 20 million Canadian visitors will have visited the country by 2024, generating more than $10.5 billion in tourism revenue. A mere 10% drop in Canadian visitors this year would cost the U.S. tourism industry $2.1 billion in revenue and up to 14,000 jobs. A worrying number. The story of Jason Dale's family is a typical example. Jason Dale planned his family's summer vacation to Tennessee, USA, a year ago with a budget of $3,400. However, after the announcement of tariffs, as well as the idea of making Canada the 51st state of Mr. Trump was considered the last straw. The Dales decided to cancel their trip to the U.S. The Canadian dollar fell to a 22-year low after the political turmoil and started to rise again when news of the U.S. delaying the import tariffs. "We've had enough. We're going to keep the money here and spend it in our own country," Dale said. Not only the Dale family, Ms. Christine Geary, founder of Maple Leaf Tours, said that the number of customers booking tours to the U.S. for the company has decreased by about 30% compared to last year. Popular destinations like Nashville, Washington, and Myrtle Beach have all seen significant declines in Canadian arrivals. And here are the 10 U.S. states hardest hit by Canada's travel boycott. 1. California faces unpredictable tourism decline. Tour bookings have dropped dramatically since Trump returned to the White House earlier this year, said Charlotte Calichiama, a longtime tour guide in California. Many customers have said they are worried and are no longer excited to visit the U.S. Some have even canceled their trips. Many have said outright that they don't want to come to the U.S. to spend money. Visit California, a nonprofit that works closely with the California State Tourism Office, forecasts total visitor numbers this year to fall 0.7% compared to 2024. International visitors will fall 9.2%. The report, by Visit California, cited reasons for the decline in international visitors as inflation due to higher tariffs, along with negative sentiment toward the United States following many of President Trump's trade policies and statements. Last year, 8 million Canadian tourists visited the state and spent about $3.72 billion, according to state figures. This year, the numbers are expected to drop nearly 20%. California isn't sitting still. The state has rolled out a slew of deals and discounts on booking platforms like Expedia and has released a new California Loves Canada ad, a subtle attempt to mend and warm relations with North American travelers. It's also hoping to attract more visitors from new markets like India and Japan this year. But things haven't gotten much better. 2. New York. America's sleepless city becomes quiet. Times Square is still bright, New York is still glamorous, but one thing you'll notice right away: New York is much quieter. Gone are the groups of smiling Canadian tourists, maps in hand, passionately exploring America's most vibrant city. Instead, a quiet void has spread, especially in small towns and upstate New York, which used to be bustling with people on weekends. Last spring, we were booked for a month, mostly by Canadians, said Mark Benson, owner of a small hotel in Lake George. This year, we're only booking rooms occasionally. It's a strange and sad feeling. According to official figures, in 2024, Canadians accounted for nearly a third of all international visitors to New York, spending billions of dollars a year. They came to Niagara Falls, Lake George, shopped, enjoyed festivals, and local cuisine. But by 2025, things had changed dramatically. According to official figures, the number of international tourists to New York in the first 4 months of 2025 decreased by about 7% compared to the same period last year. Notably, the number of visitors from Canada, the largest group of international visitors and the largest contributor to New York's tourism revenue, decreased by 30% in the summer and fall. The direct consequence is that a series of small businesses in the northern New York area are facing bankruptcy. Motels, which were full during the peak season, are now empty. Even the usually bustling weekend nights have become so quiet that they could be called ghost towns. The economic impact on New York's tourism industry has been devastating, with an estimated $4 billion in losses due to a sharp decline in international visitors. Some popular attractions, such as the Empire State Building Observatory, saw visitor numbers drop by 6% in the first quarter, while top tour companies saw a 20 to 25% drop. Without timely support measures and appropriate policies to attract visitors, small businesses and local communities here will likely witness more severe consequences this year. 3. Florida, absent of tourist smiles. In 2024, more than 3 million Canadians visited Florida, accounting for about 2% of the state's total visitors and the largest group of international visitors. However, in the first quarter of 2025, the number of Canadian visitors decreased by about 3.4% year over year to 1.227 million. Not only are the statistics showing the decline, but local businesses are also feeling the impact. I've seen an increase in cancellations from Canadians, said Richard Clavette, a motel owner in Hollywood, Florida. One guest canceled a $1,000 reservation with me and said they were going to Cuba instead of Florida. The decline is not just affecting small businesses, but the entire local economy. Restaurants, retail stores, and other tourism services are all reporting a drop in revenue. Some businesses are even considering cutting staff or closing if the situation does not improve. Tourism is one of Florida's key economic sectors. The loss of a large number of Canadian visitors has had a significant negative impact. In response, Florida tourism agencies and businesses are working to attract Canadian visitors back. Promotional campaigns, discounts, and friendly messages are being deployed to improve relations and encourage Canadian visitors to return to Florida. However, recovery will take time and effort from both sides. Florida needs to demonstrate that it remains a safe, welcoming, and attractive destination for Canadian tourists. 4. Texas, when music no longer has the laughter of tourists. The music still plays in Austin, but if you listen closely, amid the country beats and the rumble of RVs on the freeway, you'll notice something missing: the laughter, voices, and footprints of our northern friends, Canadian tourists. At a small bar in San Antonio, Joe Ramirez, who has been serving the famous brisket for 27 years, quietly wiped down an oak table that had been reserved for 15 consecutive winters by a Canadian couple, Don and Marie Leduc. They used to call me the King of Southern Barbecue, bringing gifts from Manitoba every year. Not this year. They called to apologize, saying they decided to stay in the country. It made me feel empty. In 2024, Texas welcomed more than 1.05 million Canadian visitors. They not only flocked to major cities like Houston, Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio, but also roamed through small towns, music festivals, farms, and national parks. However, in the first quarter of 2025, the number of Canadian visitors decreased by nearly 9% compared to the same period last year, equivalent to nearly 100,000 lost visitors. Flights from Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary to Houston, and Dallas are seeing 12 and 15% lower occupancy. RV parks, particularly in the Rio Grande Valley, a traditional destination for Canadian snowbirds, are seeing bookings down 18% compared to last year. While in Dallas, hotels like the Lone Star Inn and Trinity Suites are forced to slash prices to fill empty rooms, in a small town like Fredericksburg, Linda Tran, owner of a Vietnamese-Mexican bakery, said, "We used to sell more than 200 loaves of bread a day to Canadians who like the unique flavors. Now we're down to less than 70. I'm cutting back on staff hours." Tourism in Texas supports more than 600,000 jobs, leading the state's economy. But now it is facing an unprecedented crisis. There is no single reason. Political tensions between the U.S. and Canada following tariff announcements and controversial statements from U.S. leaders have made many Canadians feel unwelcome. In addition, the unfavorable USD-CAD exchange rate, along with rising airfares and travel insurance prices, have made vacationing in Texas less affordable than it once was. We can survive one season, but 3 seasons without Canadians? A lot of small businesses are going to die, said Elliot Green, CEO of an RV rental company in Corpus Christi. State tourism departments are planning a Texas Welcomes You Back campaign, targeting cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal with the heartwarming message, "Texas never stops waiting for you." Border music festivals are actively recruiting Canadian artists to bridge cultural gaps. RV parks are offering stay 3 months, pay for 2 deals to lure snowbirds back for the winter. 5. Michigan and the fear of losing customers. Once a favorite destination for Canadians, Michigan is experiencing a very different summer. Gone are the caravans of Ontario plate cars heading to Detroit or Mackinac Island, and the laughter at lakeside resorts. Instead, there is silence and anxiety throughout the border towns. The numbers never lie. In 2023, Michigan welcomed an estimated 714,900 Canadian visitors, bringing $237.8 million to the local economy. However, 2025 saw a dramatic decline. Canadian visitors were down more than 10% year over year, with bridge traffic down 18%. In Detroit, in particular, Canadian visitors fell 13% in February and March, leaving local businesses worried about the future. In Port Huron, Jack Thompson, owner of a family-owned gift shop, said, "Every summer, we usually have hundreds of visitors from Canada. They come to shop, eat, and enjoy the atmosphere here. But this year, the store is empty. I haven't seen anything like this in 20 years." Tourism is a major part of Michigan's economy, supporting about 346,000 jobs and contributing $29.3 billion in direct visitor spending. The decline in Canadian visitors affects various industries, from hotels, restaurants, retail stores, to tourist attractions. On Mackinac Island, which typically welcomes about 1 million visitors a year, businesses are worried about this year's tourist season as Canadian arrivals plummet. In border towns like Sault Ste. Marie and Port Huron, local businesses are feeling the impact of the absence of Canadian visitors. Revenues are down 20 to 30% from a year ago. Some motels have been forced to reduce staff and even close on weekdays, something they haven't done in years. We've had to cut staff and close some days of the week because bookings have dropped so much, said Linda Nguyen, manager of a small hotel. Canadian guests used to make up the bulk of our revenue. The domino effect is clear, but the damage doesn't stop at tourism. Canadians have long viewed Michigan as a go-to destination for gasoline, groceries, and clothing, especially when the US-Canada exchange rate is favorable. But this year, they're staying home, and Michigan's border economy is feeling a real freeze, not from winter, but from the stagnation of cash and people. Meanwhile, many family-owned businesses, pillars that have stood the test of time for generations, are quietly worried. What if they don't come back next year? Is a simple but haunting question, because the loss of cross-border traffic is more than just a loss of income. It is a blow to the heart of the community, a warning that what was once familiar is becoming a thing of the past. In the face of this, tourism organizations like Pure Michigan are working to attract visitors, emphasizing slow-paced travel experiences that connect with nature and local communities. However, restoring confidence and attracting Canadian visitors will take time and cooperation from both sides. Michigan is still beautiful, still alluring with its clear lakes and vast forests. But to maintain its status as a favorite destination for Canadian tourists, the state needs to do more to repair relations and rebuild trust. 6. Washington State is quieter than ever. Washington is not cold because of the snow, but because of the absence of its northern neighbors. Every Saturday morning, I would have 40 cups of coffee ready by 7 a.m., George Halverson, owner of a long-standing breakfast restaurant, recalled last year. Now, if I sell 10 cups in a morning, I cry tears of joy. Numbers don't lie, but they tell a sad story. In 2024, Washington will welcome an estimated 3.2 million Canadian visitors, accounting for nearly 15% of all out-of-state visitors. From tour shoppers and outlet shoppers to families renting cabins on San Juan Island, they will spend an estimated $970 million. As a large portion of the state's total tourism revenue of about $13.5 billion. But after just the first half of 2025, traffic at Peace Arch was down 38%, while traffic at Sumas was down more than 42% compared to the same period last year. Experts at the Cascadia Institute for Border Studies call this a post-pandemic psychological freeze, where habits have changed. At Bellis Fair Mall in Bellingham, Natalie Chen couldn't hide her worry. "We just had to lay off 27 employees last quarter. The brand store closed 3 stores and the outlet reduced its hours from 10 hours a day to 6 hours a day. Worse, the effects extend beyond retail walls. The Skagit Farmers Market has lost more than 30% of its weekend sales. Many farmers, like the Wilson family, who have grown strawberries for 3 generations, have had to destroy more than 1,000 pounds of produce each month. Restaurants in river towns like La Conner and Anacortes are now open 4 days a week instead of 7. Washington is still beautiful, but the difference is that the people who once came to see it no longer cross the border. The biggest loss isn't revenue. It's the collapse of a decades-long rhythm that once made Washington a weekend destination, not just a border state. But this year, there are fewer check-ins from Vancouver and La Conner, Port Townsend, or Seattle. More worryingly, the silence continues. 7. Nevada, the most prosperous place in America, is becoming deserted. Beneath the bright lights of Las Vegas, once a symbol of endless luxury and excitement, a quiet void now pervades. The showgirls still smile charmingly. The slot machines still flash colored lights, but the crowds are strangely sparse. Jenna, a veteran bartender at the hotel, sighs as she looks at the empty bars. There used to be so many Canadians that I had to work non-stop. They were generous, fun, and loyal customers. But now, she says, those friends are gone, and we feel their absence. Just a year ago, more than 1.7 million Canadians flocked to Nevada, from glitzy Las Vegas to hip Reno, creating a steady stream of tourists like a Swiss watch. Direct flights from Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal to Las Vegas were always full, and hotels were running at more than 90% capacity during peak season. But in 2025, that picture is changing rapidly. Flights have been cut by as much as 25%, and some routes have been canceled altogether, leading to a sharp decline in visitors from Canada. Hotels, once a favorite destination for these travelers, are now seeing only a few groups. This spring, hotel occupancy in some areas has been as low as 45 to 50%, according to a recent report from the Nevada Tourism Association. Canadian tourists always leave big tips. Sometimes I can make a week's salary in just a few holidays, said Mark, a limousine driver at McCarran Airport. Now, work is sparse, many shifts have been cut, and the atmosphere here is gloomy. The domino effect extends beyond the service industry. Restaurants on the Las Vegas Strip are reporting revenue declines of 15 to 20% compared to the same period last year. Convention centers that often host large events with many Canadians are being forced to scale back or cancel events. Nevada, for all its glitz, is more than just roulette wheels and neon lights. It's a sophisticated tourism machine that needs fuel, and Canadian tourists were once its main source of energy. When they withdrew, the inevitable consequences began to become apparent. 8. Illinois, Chicago, Windy City, faces storm of tourist absence. Chicago, the largest city in Illinois and a symbol of American culture in the heart of the Midwest, has been a favorite destination for Canadian tourists, with an impressive number, more than 455,000 visitors in 2023. The familiar footsteps from Toronto, Montreal, or Vancouver not only bring bustle to Michigan Avenue, Navy Pier, but also promote a strong local economic development. However, the number of Canadian visitors this year is showing signs of a clear decline, with significant economic consequences. Data from the Chicago Department of Tourism shows that in the first quarter of 2025, the number of Canadian visitors decreased by about 20% compared to the same period last year, equivalent to nearly 90,000 absentees. This decline is more than just an abstract number. It is reducing hotel occupancy from an average of 85% to below 65% in key areas like downtown, the Magnificent Mile, and the historic Old Town. Some luxury boutique hotels like the Langham and Peninsula are even reporting revenue declines of up to 25%. We have Canadians who come here regularly, not only for food, but also for regulars, said Samantha, a restaurant manager in the River North area. When they are gone, our revenue drops significantly, our staff has reduced their shifts, and some have even had to quit. In addition to the hotel and restaurant industry, cultural attractions such as the Art Institute of Chicago, Millennium Park, and performing arts programs have also recorded a sharp decline in international visitors. Many events have been postponed or reduced in scale due to lack of attendees. This has had a ripple effect, affecting ancillary service industries such as taxis, tour guides, retail stores, and even the nightlife industry. Local businesses are feeling the squeeze on revenue, forcing many investors to reconsider their development plans in the city. However, Chicago still maintains its position with many strategies to promote domestic and international tourism, expecting to quickly attract back visitors from Canada and other markets shortly. 9. Hawaii, as Canada's tourism wave begins to recede. With its long white sand beaches, brilliant turquoise waters, and year-round pleasant climate, Hawaii has long been a winter paradise for hundreds of thousands of Canadian snowbirds, who escape the harsh cold of their home countries to seek the warmth of the Pacific archipelago. In 2023, the state welcomed more than 480,000 Canadian visitors, mainly concentrated in the months of November to March. This year, however, that wave appears to be easing, and the impact is significant. According to the Hawaii Tourism Authority, HTA, Canadian arrivals in the first quarter of 2025 were down more than 18%, or nearly 90,000 visitors not arriving. That's hundreds of empty flights, thousands of missed hotel nights, and tens of millions of dollars in consumer spending that haven't flowed into the local economy. Airlines such as WestJet and Air Canada have reduced or suspended direct flights from Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto to major islands such as Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island. Local tour operators have reported a drop of more than 25% in bookings, especially for high-end tours such as whale watching, sunset cruises, and Hawaiian cultural exploration. Coastal restaurants, retail stores, and local artisans, who rely on cash flow from Canadian visitors, are seeing a decline in orders and traffic. With the economy relying more than 20% on tourism, the absence of one of Hawaii's most loyal international customer groups is a sobering wake-up call for the industry. 10. Tennessee, when country music missed its northern fans. Tennessee, the land of music, BBQ, and southern hospitality, has long been a particularly popular destination for Canadian tourists. Cities like Nashville, with its Grand Ole Opry and live music bars, and Pigeon Forge, home to Dollywood, regularly welcome tens of thousands of Canadian visitors each year. In 2023, nearly 310,000 Canadians visited Tennessee, spending money on music tours, Southern cuisine, and shopping at famous outlet malls. But in 2025, those numbers are plummeting. Some local travel companies are reporting a loss of up to 30% of their revenue from the Canadian market, causing a severe downturn in the tourism supply chain. Timothy Rhodes, director of a Nashville music tour company, candidly shared, "Canadians come here not just to listen to music. They book tours, book hotels, dine out, and buy VIP tickets. The lack of them affects our entire business model." Smaller venues that rely on international audiences are scaling back shows or canceling them altogether. Dollywood, the state's cultural and entertainment icon, has also had to adjust its ticket pricing and promotional strategies to fill the void. Additionally, the lodging sector in Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Memphis saw occupancy rates drop from 80% to 62% during the spring travel season. The impact was felt widely by taxi companies, tour operators, and gift shops, which rely on Canadians for 40% of their customers. Tennessee may still buzz with music and neon lights, but without the laughter and deep pockets of northern tourists, those tunes are slowly losing their once prosperous rhythm. The U.S. economy is sweating in the heat, not just because of the weather, but because of the growing gap with our northern friend. The absence of Canadian tourists has made America's once smooth tourism machine more difficult. Can the two neighbors, the U.S. and Canada, find their old rhythms again? Perhaps the answer lies not in dry statistics, but in the restoration of national confidence and pride. For now, we can only wait and hope that the relationship between the two close allies, the U.S. and Canada, will be better. What we share in the video is for reference only and is analyzed from many perspectives. Please combine other sources of information for a more complete and objective view.